Okay, we're going to do another tier list, but today we're going to be doing a PvP tier list. PvP is my primary endgame play style. I've hit 2400 in ones on Area 52 multiple times. I've hit 2400 in twos as a warrior back in the day on retail. I've played tons of Unholy DK and Wrath on Warmane. I've played Demon Hunter to 2400 in solo shuffle back in like Dragonflight. So like I do know quite a bit about PvP, but I'm not like some demigod rank 1, multi-gladiator. And I'm also saying this because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is speculation. I do not know every mystic enchant of every class yet. I basically just don't know everything about every spec, but I do know quite a bit about every spec and how they stack up in PvP. But it's going to be weird, and I think this list might be off a little bit here and there just because, access to Wrath talents in vanilla style content could be super detrimental to how a tier list would look compared to, regular vanilla. But with the Yap Fest over, no speculation involved, I know these three tanks for a fact are going to be insane. Gladiator stance warriors can just like straight up one-shot people. If we're talking like 1v1 situations, whether it's in a BG, open world, or in arena, a lot of these tanks are just going to beat your head in, man. They're really, really hard to like compare anything to. They're just so strong. Obviously, casters have a leg up against these guys, but even still, it's just going to be really rough to get these guys down in every PvP scenario. Okay, so I added an S- row because I feel like the gap between the S tier tanks and the A tier classes, it's a bigger gap than you think. And so I'm doing S- to kind of help extend that gap to make it a little more obvious just how different they are than everybody else. Next up, we're just going to throw Frost and Sub-Rogue right into S- tier. Clearly a staple in World of Warcraft PvP through like most of its history, right? Both of these classes have tons of control. And in terms of 2v2s, that's insanely important. In terms of 1v1, they have tons of CC and utilities that just kind of make them untouchable for durations of the 1v1. And so in any pretty much arena you're doing, these guys are going to be S tier. And even in BGs and world PvP, like if you can isolate people, you can just destroy them with these two classes there. Not much else to say. It's not any different than every other expansion, right? Rogue and Sub just have so much utility they destroy in PvP. Next up, Ret Paladin. That's going to go straight into the S- tier for me, too. These guys hit pretty hard, and it's kind of the same thing as like a prop pally. They obviously aren't as tanky as a prop pally, so they're not as hard to like knock off, but they still have tons of survivability. They're hard to kill. They heal a lot. They do good damage. They got Hand of Justice, Hand of Freedom, so many things that they can just get you with in PvP that makes them really hard to deal with and a very strong class to use pretty much in any PvP scenario. Next up, we got, we'll grab Arcane Mage next. I'm going to put them, oh man, I really am torn here. I think I'm going to put them in S- tier. I think they have a little bit less survivability than Frost, obviously, but they can still just control the hell out of any fight. And they have some mystic enchants that can turn them into like a really bursty weapon of doom. Like, it's insane. We'll go straight into Fire Mage next. I'm going to put Fire Mage in the A tier because I think it is slightly worse than Arcane. I think it is slightly worse than Frost, just because it doesn't have the same survivability as Frost, and I genuinely think Arcane with the right build, the right enchants, I think it could be better than Fire as far as, like, burstiness. But in the right settings, like in Battlegrounds, for example, when you're doing a big fight in a flag in a Arathi Basin or a big fight in mid in Temple of Kamagu, these guys have access to Living Bomb, and that could be super fun, and you could possibly like flip the tide of a fight as a Fire Mage, or if you get South Shore versus Terra Mill, just by tab living bombing everybody on their team, which isn't the funnest way to play, but I do think these guys have some serious potential in Battlegrounds and stuff like that. But as far as like arena goes, and in most situations, I think, getting a kill and making sure you don't get killed, Frost Mage and Arcane Mage are just a little better than Fire. Let's knock one of these priest specs out. I'm going to put Shadow Priest as like the highest A tier. I think it's really close to S- tier, but I just think, again, like with Fire, I don't think it's on the same level as Frost and Arcane. it might actually have like a little more survivability, you know, with like the heals over time and just the ability to heal at all. Power word shield, things of that nature. It just doesn't have as much control, and it definitely just doesn't have as much burst damage, which, you know, if you're doing twos or maybe even ones, you kind of want to open a kill window and just get somebody dead. I feel like that's kind of always historically been really hard to do on Shadow Priest, but with just the through damage of you just like constantly healing and bubbling, and you could probably just out sustain somebody to death, which is why I have them as high as I do. I think they are really strong and they do have good CC. They have a lot of good stuff going for them, but I just don't think they're quite at this level. Ret 2, I'll even move Ret down. I would say probably Frost, Sub, Arcane, then Ret in that order, just because Ret does also kind of lack that controllability of every arena. Like, they don't have as much control as a Rogue or a Mage, but they do just have tons of damage and survivability. They're just fucking tanks. They're literally like a huge tank coming at you. Knock out a couple more Rogue specs. I think Assassination, I don't think it's the worst spec. I don't think it's good. A Combat, I think, is the worst Rogue spec for PvP. Assassination, you can get a lot going for you in terms of poison damage and deadly poison, and you know, sometimes you have to switch targets for a bit, and then you can have multiple poisons on multiple targets and just kind of have cleave damage in arena, but it's just not as bursty as Sub. You know, Sub with Shadow, or not Shadow, yeah, Shadow Dance, what am I saying? With Shadow Dance, Sub is just so strong, so bursty. Combat, I mean, like, just think of the cooldowns for combat, right? Like, something like Blade Flurry, like, it gives you good cleave, but it's more of like a PvE kind of like build altogether. Honestly, Assassination can kind of be seen as like a PvE build as well, but I'm sure maybe with some like talent choices and Mystic Enchants, you could get Assassination to be a decent PvP spec, but again, Combat, just not it. Assassination, just nowhere near as good as Sub. Destruction Warlock, I'll throw in the same tier as a Fire Mage, right? You could kind of like interchange these two however you want to look at it. Obviously, Warlock doesn't have as much control as a Mage would in arena scenarios, but they do still have tons and tons of control of fights with Fear and certain abilities, with like the Fell Hunter being able to silence people, or the Succubus being able to put people to sleep. But you're basically trading out some of your control that like a Mage would have access to for a little more survivability. Well, yeah, other than Fire. Yeah, Fire for sure. Frost has more survivability than a Warlock, I'd probably say, but a Fire Mage does not. A Fire Mage does not have the survivability Destro does, but they might be able to outdamage them a little bit. We'll have to wait and kind of see again with like Mystic builds and stuff. I'm not too sure on that, but I would give the edge probably slightly, honestly, probably slightly to Destro, just because survivability, especially as a cloth caster, is going to be so important. Boomy Druids, I don't know, man. I'll put them in like high B tier. I feel like when you talk about a balanced Druid, they should always be really, really good in arenas and BGs and stuff. They usually aren't that good. Like, on paper, it looks dope. Then you see the numbers, and it's just kind of like underwhelming. I don't know. I've never really cared for balance in PvP. That being said, I don't really think Feral DPS Catform, I don't think that's going to be a shining light in PvP either. I just don't think Druid is going to be great in PvP unless you're healing. I think Resto Druids are extremely good. I honestly think a lot of healers are going to be in the S- tier. I kind of took a second to think about it, and I think I would put all of these healers in S- tier. Some are going to be better at things than others, but they all have their own shining spotlight. Where like Disc is going to be insanely good in arena, I feel like. Druid's going to be really good at healing like teams and BGs. Shaman's going to be really good in BGs at running flags, and probably even be really good in arena. Like, honestly, I think all of these are going to be really good in arena if you're doing 2s or 3s, but you just got to kind of like know what you want from your healer and pick them. I can't really give you a definitive answer as to like every scenario where one healer would beat another healer. There's just too many to go over. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to put Affliction in B tier. I've never had I've had fun playing Affliction in like 1v1s or in world PvP, and just like kind of, you know, pillar hopping and letting the dots eat people alive is satisfying. But especially in like a BG scenario or against certain classes, they're just going to get rid of them. They're just going to dispel them, and you'll just have to sit and reapply them over and over again. You're never going to get like the full value or highest tick damage out of like a Curse of Agony, because they're just going to remove it, bubble it, heal through it, whatever. I just don't think Affliction is that good. I don't think, too, like I said earlier, when you're in arena especially, you kind of want to pick a kill window and get people dead in a certain time frame. Affliction's just not going to be great at that like Destro is, you know? Elemental Shaman, I'm going to put higher in A tier than Destro and Fire, just because of things like Ghost Wolf, your totems, being able to heal yourself. I think they're going to hit extremely hard. I think they just have great utility from the totems and other like cooldowns they have. I think they're going to be pretty goddamn good as far as casters go in just about all scenarios. BGs, arenas, world PvP, I think Ellie's going to be pretty strong. Demonology, I think, is going to go in C tier. I think it's just worse than Affliction. Because, like, at least with Affliction, you're making it so they have to dispel your curses, or you can, you know, put on, like, Curse of Tongues, Curse of Exhaustion, Curse of Weakness. You can do all these things to all these different classes, and you're putting pressure on the healer, or whoever has it, to dispel these things, and Demo just doesn't really have that pressure. They have their pets, and yeah, it's like you can't really get rid of their pets, but then their dots don't do much damage. The Warlock themselves is doing nowhere near as much damage as like a Destro Warlock would be doing. And it's just like underwhelming. Like, again, when there's a kill window, that you can't really just like toss a Chaos Bolt at them, you know? So their damage is really underwhelming, and you're not really applying pressure to like remove anything. It's just you're casting, your pets are smacking, and everybody's just looking at you like you're a goofball. Hunter's pretty easy. Obviously, Beastmaster is always really strong in PvP scenarios. It's kind of like the opposite of Demonology, right? Where with like Demonology, you're like, yeah, all the damage is just kind of underwhelming, and Destro can just have a burst window and this and that. Nah, Beastmaster has that, though. But Beastmaster has tons of pressure with their damage output, right? They're constantly hitting you with different shots and stings, and their pets hitting you, and they're kiting you, and they're trapping you, and they just got so much going for them that really, it's just consistently high damage, I guess, is how I would look at it, right? It's one of those classes where, like, maybe a burst window opens, and I don't think Beastmaster can really do anything other than, like, a kill shot, which, I mean, still, compared to Demonology, at least they have kill shot, but even without a kill window having kill shot up or whatever, you got Bestial Wrath and stuff you can pop. That just causes you and your pet to pump crazy numbers. Hitting players with Bestial Wrath and then like a kill command and arcane shot and auto shot with a Serpent Sting tick all at the same time. Like, it's super bursty, and it doesn't have like huge cooldowns. Like, the pet's constantly hitting you. They're stacking kill commands with arcane shots every once in a while, and it's just such consistent throughput damage that it's going to be hard for healers to keep up with, and it's not a bad choice. Marksman, I think, is going to be good. I think it's slightly more gear dependent. I think it's slightly more crit dependent. I think they might be a little bit better. Well, no, probably not. I was going to say maybe they're better in a kill window, but I don't even really think they'd be better than Beastmaster in a kill window. They might be able to burst a little bit more, man. Maybe just ever so slightly with the right gear and stuff set up, the right enchants, but Beastmaster is just it's just a dog, bro. It just does so much damage consistently. Survival, I mean, there's like 10 different ways to play that spec. I don't think any of them are going to be super good in PvP. Feral Tank, I mean, like, unlike the other tanks, Feral Tank kind of just sucks. I don't think it really does a lot of damage. I don't think it really does much. I mean, to be honest, it's got a lot of survivability, but like, even for melee, it's like, what all he's going to do is dodge you occasionally. Like with the other tank specs, they're going to be blocking you, they're going to be parrying you. Actually, maybe bears can parry. I don't think they can, but maybe they can. But it's like, I don't know, it's just the worst tank spec as far as PvP goes. Arms, I think, will be pretty good. You know, just like in every other expansion, I think Arms will be really, really good. And I think Fury's interesting, but I think Fury's going to be kind of ass. Can't lie, I just don't think Fury's going to be too great. Not really sure why. You know, maybe I'll bump Feral up here, because I don't think any class is really going to be D tier, or any spec is going to be too D tier at the end of the day. But this is kind of what my list is looking like, just based off speculation and what I think will be the best of the best in kind of every scenario. But I know I geared it a lot more towards arena, but honestly, even when you're in a battleground, a lot of times you end up in a 1v1 or 2v2 scenario that can change the ebb and flow of an entire BG, right? So it's like, in all PvP scenarios, you need to be able to win a 1v1 fight, right? Like, if you can't, it's not a good PvP class. So I know it sounded like I geared the video a lot more towards arena, and not everybody's interested in arena, but like I said, I think it works just as well for ranking things in BGs too.